I told you.
Am I happy to be here? Look at this face and ask yourself, is Coach Cheese happy to be here? Well, I'll tell you what, I am not happy to be here. I'm kind of happy to be here. How's everybody sitting at home? For those of you sitting at home, waiting until eventually the current administration cures death, remember, masked or vaxxed, or masked and vaxxed, or neither. I can't remember the catchphrase. Or maybe it was beef or steak, or chicken or beef. I can't remember. Maybe it was circumcised. I don't know. Yeah, so my little duckies, I, Uncle Cochise, bid you hello for another wonderful episode of Guild Night. You know the song and dance. You watch us, or you watch me in this case. We give you the content. We come to your house. We pour the content into a trough. You come outside like a little piggy and consume the content. And then me and Trey and Tremere sneak out back and steal your silverware. That's what we do. We're happy to do it. And that's our MO. You could say that is our TTP, if you will. So,
been back in the DOD for a week.
Yeah, I've been back in the DOD for all of a week, and I'm already mouthing in useless platitudes. So, we're going to go ahead and cut to announcements. For those of you who are hearing the sound of my voice and are not on the Temple's new Discord page, and you're wondering, wow, Slack sure is quiet, you're wrong. Stop being wrong. Come to the Discord channel, you little goofball. Talk to me, Trey or Tremere. We will shepherd you over there. We'll make sure that you have your helmet on. Everything's going to be okay. We'll get you over to the new Discord, and everything's going to be fine. So remember, Slack is quiet because nobody is on Slack. Come over to the new Discord, so that way Discord bot can tell you when you level up for... Why do we have that? Why do we have the Discord bot?
Because I'm sick of it on you.
I think that bot's around literally to annoy me and Rab.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't like the bot. The bot pisses me off. We should have a bot for when that bot levels up. So, yeah, come on over to the new Discord. It's full of fun, amazing shenanigans, including Cochise yelling at an inanimate digital object, like old man yells at cloud. Next week's talk is something super secret and special being put on by our own Maria Laura. She's going to go out there and scour the earth for content for you all, and you all will like it. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. After that, coming into June, we have Prepper Month. Last month in June, the entire country caught fire. Our scientists here at the temple are currently working on something else to spark fires around the country. So that way, June is relevant to you, the viewer, and we can give you a live, unadulterated playground in which you can practice cyber resilience. At the end of the month, we are going to culminate in a prepper workshop of sorts. We will have people there within the guild telling you how to farm chickens, how to prepare for hurricane season, and even how to ensure that your data is in your own possession no matter where you go. And you can do cryptocurrency and stuff. Yeah, the week after next, we have Cam telling us some crypto cyber wizardry. Past that, we have a whole bunch of workshops being brought to you. If you have any interest in I think it was a malware reversing workshop, Jameer? What was the 2 workshops you were saying?
We have possible networking.
Networking, put on by Trey.
A Wi-Fi hacking.
And a Wi-Fi hacking being put on by Amber, right? Yeah, I think Amber. By who?
Jake.
Oh, yeah, Jake from State Farm. Okay, yeah, Vodkanaut, he's going to put on a Wi-Fi hacking workshop. We got another CTF coming at you fast in the month of June. June is going to be an amazing month. If you're not Wednesday is coming up soon. I'm going to announce this now. If you are an apprentice, if you're an associate, or if you are hearing the sound of my voice, you're not a temple member, but you want to know what the temple's all about, Wednesdays are going to be hosted by one of our own little masters, Cam, and it's going to have him coming down here mentoring apprentices and associates looking to be apprentices on projects. So Wednesday night, starting from 5 to 7, is going to be open project night. Come down with whatever crazy mad science you're doing. If you want to put PF Sense on a potato, whatever it is you're trying to do, call on down. If not, to hang out, because as things reopen, we, the temple owners and the masters, and Chris, who is our official mascot, we want to see more of your faces. We want to experience you more. Right now, you're experiencing me uploaded to your house at 56 kilobits per second. We want to experience that in person. So come on down, Wednesdays, 5 to 7, hang out with Cam. One of the 3 temple omnipotent ones will be down here as well. Hang out with us, enjoy the workspace, piss off count 0. We're actually going to be starting a punch card for pissing off count 0. If you do it 10 times, you'll get a free sandwich from Jimmy John's. And we'll keep going with that. So going into tonight's talk, if it doesn't look like I don't have any more announcements to make, going into tonight's talk. Oh, Koby Briefcase. So we all know and love Koby Briefcase, who is the temple's resident and token suit. Whereas all of us are unpalatable and very strange because we say potty words, or we take Adderall, or we dress up in chainmail for no apparent reason whatsoever, looking at you, Tremere. Or we decided that we were going to be Antique Roadshow, but for a different reason. We're here for you, the unsavory. Koby, however, is for people who think mayonnaise is spicy. That's what he does. He's our resonant suit, so we can lure people down here who also wear suits and ease them in to the Cochise, Tremere, Trey, and Chris experience. After that, we pull the rug out, and then we have them read Koby's book about how he likes to get in like broken bottle fights outside of fucking Perkins parking lots and shit in Polk County, where then Koby eats pancakes with Grady Judd and stuff. So we had Koby. I remember the first night I met Koby. I thought he was one of the most boring, stale, contrite people I've ever met in my life. After almost 2 years, aside from his D&D experiences, his ammo that he probably found off of a truck that he sells me and Trey all the time.
Solid.
It is solid ammo, guys. Like Koby is our plug. He is our gun lord. Aside from all that, he's still one of the most milquetoast, well-dressed people who thinks mayonnaise is spicy and Nickelback is good music that I've had the privilege of knowing. Now, the interesting thing about Koby is for the last 20 years, he's kind of been in a position that I've always wanted to be in, where he is his own boss. He can say whatever he wants and do whatever he wants, which whenever Kochi realized Koby was his own boss and he was still milquetoast and unappealing, I had a lot of questions. Like, why do you behave like somebody who's under the thumb of authoritarianism even though you're your own boss? He didn't really have a good reason for me. So then Koby's like, I'm going to cybersecurity. We're all like, okay, you cybersecurity. He is now cybersecurityed. He's doing the cybersecurities. Tonight, Koby is going to tell you, feckless schmuck at home, on how he started doing the cybersecurities, and he went from running his own, various companies and making millions of dollars that he could spend on Chumbawamba concert CDs to doing cybersecurity stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Koby. Koby, come on down. He can't come down to the temple because he's waiting for us to cure death. So he's been parked in his house for the last year and a half, going to the bathroom in the corner like an animal. I don't want to go in his house because I'd get pink eye from him going to the bathroom in the corner, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Go, Koby.
Oh boy, I'm excited to be back, everybody. How do you follow that? I have no idea. Oh man, it was funny because just this morning, one of my teammates asked me, I forget the exact words, it was very polite, but it was, do you ever dress down? I was like, no, not really. I'll untuck my shirt on Friday. Anyway, welcome everybody. It's glad to be back. Almost back. I haven't actually gone down to the guild yet. Coach East is right. I have been in deep quarantine with my family and our pod, which is our neighbors. They've formed kind of a little pod with us. So anyway, let's just dive right in. I got a lot to talk about tonight. So let's get to it. All right, so I like to tell people where you're going, especially because I talk about a lot of things and I pack a lot of info in. So there's going to be 8 parts to this talk tonight. The first one is the introduction. That's basically who I am. I'll introduce myself, but I've also asked other members of the temple to participate. We are a collective, and then we will continue. So the main ideas is this next section. We will talk about the concepts of job hunting. The resume is a very important part, so we'll get into that. We're going to talk about the actors in job hunting. It really helps to know all of the people involved when you're looking for a job when it comes to recruiting, because there's a lot of different moving parts, and if you understand the purpose of each one of them, it helps you navigate them. Then we're going to talk about the application process, what to expect when you're hunting, the interview process, that's key, what to expect in an interview. Then we're going to recap. I'm going to basically tell you what I told you. And then we're going to probably have some questions for everything that I didn't cover or forgot to at the end. So anyway, who is this guy? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my brief career history. Well, I'm going to give you a brief version of my career history. I don't think it's brief. And then we're going to talk about what's in it for you. This is my disclaimer. So I'm here talking at the Neon Temple. By the way, you should check out the Neon Temple. We'll get into that. Sign up for the free newsletter. These are my words. I'm not here representing anyone officially, any corporation, any organization. This is a talk that I'm giving to my brethren and also opening to the public. If you want to check out the Neon Temple, there's a very cool website. It's called theneontemple.com. And you can come down and you can put in your email, and then you can subscribe to a free newsletter and find out more about things like this. So back to the presentation. Sorry about that. Yes. All right, awesome words. Now, so a little bit about me. There's really three things you can remember about me, so we don't go on forever. I started as an artist a long time ago. And then I moved from that into the IT industry because there was money in it and there was starving in artistry. So I spent over 25 years in IT industry, over 20 years of that in AppSec, CyberSec. Learned a lot of languages. I started as a developer from the ground up, actually as a designer first, then a developer, QA, QC, database administrator, junior developer, etc. I went through a lot of different languages in that time: Java, C#, JavaScript, PHP, Golang, which is something I'm learning now. I also started a company called Black Tea Software. I started this in 2001 at the end of the dot-com bust. I'm a tea fanatic. I drink a lot of tea. So that was the name that I came up with. And I'm kind of an accidental entrepreneur, a nonstop consultant for the past 20 years, kind of an instant expert is what consultancy is all about. My first clients were government regulated. I've been doing secure work ever since. I started a few companies, including Black Tea Software. I co-founded a company called Innovative Front, which is a marketing company, about 5 years ago. Those two are still doing fine. I co-founded and sold some others. I'm an instructor here at the Guild in CyberSec and Python, creating basic tools for hacking. I was also elected a master here last year as a subject matter expert by the Guild. You can learn the rest on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can find me if you have some good, solid cybersecurity skills. 40 years I've been playing D&D. It's something I throw out there now because it's my geek cred and also because it's cool now. We can talk about it now because it's cool. 40 years ago, not so much. A lot of devil worship was associated with D&D or something back then. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Anyway, so 7 years ago, I became a published author. I published a book called Integrity Developing Principled Life. 40 years. You can find that on Amazon. There it is right there. It's a short book. If you're interested in that sort of thing. Why does it keep stop presenting? Don't know. Okay. So what's in it for me? Why am I giving this talk? I'm giving this talk because the pandemic reminded me of basically the dot-com bust. And it reminded me of doing what I love. I decided to focus on the tech, be very hands-on. Over the years, I've been a lead, I've been a manager, I've been a VP, I've been a CEO. I got kind of tired of chasing the business. I think I'm an engineer at heart. I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've hired close to 100 as an employer. Over the past 20 years, you can say 92.5% of that I've been on my own. 7.5 of it I've worked for other people as an employee-employer relationship. That number was trending down, but now it's going to trend up. which is one of the reasons for this talk. So recently I did a journey to the other side of the fence. I've been employed now for over 30 days. So this is going to be a very fresh talk about landing a job. And I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm a principal security engineer right now at Sezzle, which is a buy now, pay later solution. Basically, you pay on installments on your phone, you pay installments on your car. Why not do it on retail? So you can buy something and in 4 easy payments, you pay it off over time. You're soon going to see this company everywhere. I'm extremely confident of that. Why? Because it helps a lot of young people build credit that may not be able to get credit. In addition to that, it avoids the debt spiral that credit cards and the credit card industry wants you to be in. They want you to get a credit card. They want you to not pay it off so they can make money off of the loan that they have given you. Whereas Sezzle, you buy something and in 4 payments, you have paid it off. You're going to own it anyway. You're just spreading it out a little bit. I love it. I'm using it now, actually. So I'm really hoping to tell you what it's like in job hunting from both sides of the fence so that you can kind of have an advantage, seeing what it's like to be an employee and what employers think about. This is not a prescriptive how-to talk. It's not going to be a talk about how to write the perfect resume. The Temple can provide more on that later. If you get the newsletter and we come up with something like that, you will be informed. So let's move on. Oh, these are the people that need a job. She needs a job. He wants a job. They need and want a job. A lot of different motivations here. So some of the main ideas here. We're going to talk about how job placement is not a perfect science, and it's an imperfect science. It is also a process to get a job. It's really a job to get a good job. We're going to talk about the main goal of the recruiting process when you're applying, and that is really to just get the interview. And also we're going to talk about the concept of you interviewing the interviewer. So let's move forward. So first things first, it is not perfect. So job hunting is kind of a best guess process for employers to get employees, prospective employees, to try and work there and find a really good fit. I mean, a lot of people, they see the process and they think it's very official. It comes kind of from the HR industry, but the way it is played out in every company is different. It is not perfect at all. It is not a science. There's a big reason why there's such a need in cybersecurity right now, and then candidates are having trouble getting hired. I think part of the process, which I don't know if it can really be improved a whole lot, is part of that. So we're hearing about hacks all the time, big ones. There's going to be even bigger ones by the time you watch this on replay. And there's such a huge need, and there's such a need for candidates. But sometimes you hear that they're just not getting it together, and you see the frustrations of junior people in security having, what they're having trying to get into the job market. So anyway, the bottom line is my firm opinion is that the entire recruiting process, you have to remember that the people are involved, and these people are trying to do the best that they can. They're kind of making it up as they go along. In some companies, they have processes and procedures, but it's not perfect. Some companies, you have to remember, they don't even have an HR department. I've seen that. Smaller companies, there's nobody in HR. HR is like the accountant that pays your bills. So, or pays your salary, excuse me. A lot of people in the process, they have very little training. The recruiter, the internal recruiter, the person that's job to make sure that you're hired, they might have training. Some of the C-level people might have training, but some may not have any at all. There's really the whole process that we have for recruiting is mainly a set of practices to avoid a company getting sued. Some may not realize that, but these rules have come out. But there's people that break them, and there's a lot of companies that unconsciously discriminate. It is true. The concept overall of HR is primarily a Western world thing because of litigation. I learned that a long time ago when actually I was building an HR product, and it was to be global, but it was not global everywhere because it was a Western world concept. Some countries have no concept of HR whatsoever. So let's talk about strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. So these are the variables in the job hunting process. One of the strengths is that company maturity can be a great thing for some candidates, both from an immature company point of view and a mature company point of view. So what does that mean? So if you come in a company and it's at the ground floor, it's a startup per se, and this startup is just forming teams and they're just getting their feet on the ground, you can come in and you can kind of make it your place. You will be one of the first employees in. You will be the one that contributes a lot to the processes and procedures. You'll be one that contributes heavily to the company. That's a valuable position if that's something you want. There's a lot of long-term reward that can come at it. Also, a lot of startups fail. I recommend when you're young to try that and make these kind of chances a lot, because you can only improve yourself even if the company does fail. There's larger companies that are very mature, have a mature culture, they're doing well, doing the right things. That's good for stability. So these can all be strengths for a job hunter. Opportunities. Interviewer skill is variable. But you have to remember that basically everybody in the process, they all want someone to make their job easier. If you're going to come on their team, they don't want you to be a burden. They want you to be someone who helps them in the long run. And also sometimes immediately in the short term. Weaknesses right now, really a lot of companies don't know how to hire security. Of course, this is really for a talk that can be for anybody who's looking for a job, but we are in a cybersecurity guild. So few companies really know how to hire security. There's a big joke about that in our community about, the job description of a candidate that needs 10 years and a tool that was invented like 5 years ago. Companies are doing their best, but security itself is such a particular beast. It's very hard for them to figure out what it is that they need. It's kind of like them self-diagnosing a problem, but they're hiring you because they need you to solve it. It's a weird dance. Some of the threats is that when you're job hunting, despite what you believe, some companies, they're not really ready to hire anyone. They might go through a couple phases of putting out job descriptions and hoping that they will get the right candidate, only to find out that job description needs to change because when they came in through the interview process, they found out that's not what they needed and it didn't jive well with some of the leadership, or even with some of the people on the team. You'll find that some companies, they will put out job descriptions just to get feedback. They have no intention of hiring anyone at all. They're just trying to get feedback or trying to figure out what the market is like or when the right time to hire is. It might be someone that thinks they need to hire someone, but really when it comes down to it, the CFO at the end of the day is not going to give them the budget. So everyone in the process is a believer except for the CFO, and that's where the buck stops. So in this little story, I went through interviews, speaking of interviewer skill, and this one guy was late to the interview. And as soon as he got on, he said, "Hi, how are you? I'm so-and-so. My job is to weed out people lying on their resume." Woof. That kind of set a tone. So I was like, okay, great. Let's continue. So really the whole conversation went from him realizing that I could help him with his job tremendously. And then he started to dig more into my background and understanding it. And then there was a period in that conversation where I turned in actually to a threat to him and his existence. When I was in leadership and hiring, I had this buzzword that I would look for. It was called not a culture fit. So I'd send people through the interview process. Everybody was great, technical skill, great, green light everywhere. But I don't know, they weren't really a cultural fit. What does that mean? That means that a lot of people in the process, they don't want to hire someone that can outshine them in any way whatsoever because they're basically hiring someone to make their job bad. So really it's up to the leadership of the org to detect that type of thing and then find out if somebody's a really good candidate and if they're going to bring the whole level of the room up. Sometimes you won't find that. You'll find people that want to be surrounded by people that know something, you can't know everything. They might know something a little better than you do, and they want to bring you on the team and then have you teach them. And that's a wonderful thing. But in some companies, they don't want that competition. So that was really interesting to me. Job descriptions. You want to take a look at job descriptions also when you're out there looking around, because you'll find that the job description may actually be 3 jobs, kind of amalgamated into one as it went through the process. So it's up to you to decide whether or not that is a good job description when you're interviewing, or if this job description is really at the heart of it, you doing 3 people's job for half the pay. So anyway, next. So it's a job to get one. I want everyone that is looking for a job or thinking about looking for a job to understand that it is a project in and of itself. You have to work hard to get a job. You have to make it top of mind and a priority. Very rarely does a job land in your lap through just a lunch with someone. If it does, you're extremely lucky. You really have to work hard to get out there, find something. It's all about the hustle, really, when you're looking for a job. You might be juggling different interviews. You might be juggling different applications that you're making. You'll be writing a lot. You'll be studying. You may be taking cognitive tests. These are all things to look forward to in the process. So really, one of the main ideas, as I said before, is the interview is the goal of everything whenever you're looking for a job. You really want to get the interview because that's when you become a mindless number piece of paper and an actual human being for the people that are interviewing to look for someone that can, come into their org and help them. So throughout the whole process, think about that. The goal is the interview, and we'll talk a little bit about strategies to get there. So let's go down a little bit deeper into the interview. So the interview is basically the only part that you will have the maximum amount of control and in many performance. Other than that, it's basically a cattle call. You want to have some stories memorized about your career before you hit the interview, because you'll hit some of the same common questions over and over again. And you want to basically be able to rattle off the story, give them an impression, give them a comprehensive something in a very short period of time. It is a mini performance. You're performing for them because you're trying to make this imperfect scenario something more meaningful and maximize your fit for them and your opportunity at getting an offer. Some recruiters have told me that really getting the interview is your only goal. So story, I interviewed with a company that was up in Canada, and the recruiter spent a lot of time with me. She was very, very nice. And she said, listen, I've been doing this 40 years and your resume is terrible. I immediately perked up because the best thing that you can ever have is somebody come off the street and tell you, you know what your problem is? Just perk right up when you hear those words, because they might give you a wonderful gift. So she basically went through my interview, ripped it to shreds in a matter of like 30 seconds, gave me some very insightful feedback. And I went and I changed that resume over the next 30 minutes and immediately gave it back to her so that she could use that as a submission in her org. It was really nice. I really appreciated that. You'll meet some people along the way like that. So why do you want to get this interview? Because there will be objections about you that they may have, some questions they might have about them, hiring you. They're always going to come up in the process because they're taking a chance. There may be other candidates that they're very closely looking at. You want to overcome these objections and highlight your strengths with stories. Nobody wants to hire a problem. Nobody. So if you can see anything about your work history, anything about your skill level that might be a problem, you want to try and create a creative story in order to overcome that. For me, my biggest objection flat out was what the lady in Canada said, was that I'm an entrepreneur. She said, I understand that this job description is looking for someone with entrepreneurial skill. but she said, you are an entrepreneur, and that's a little different. There's not many orgs that are going to want to hire entrepreneurs because they see you as a flight risk. They don't want someone that's going to come in, they're going to invest in and then bounce out. That's just the way it is. So there's a problem when you have an ability to create your own wealth. So what I did is I basically told stories about why it is that I wanted to make this leap. Because I hit a point, you're going to hear about it. People in the pandemic, they're like, this pandemic is crazy. You know, people are dying. It's stressful. What do I want to do that I really love? And that was easy for me. So I was able to translate that very easily in the interview process. And I wanted a company to invest in me because I believe in investing in a company. I'm not young. I'm not going to bounce from job to job. So when I make a decision, it's going to be one that I do for a long time. So anyway, overcome all of your resume failures in the interview. Everybody will think if they get enough feedback about their resume that there's going to be some spots that are spotty or can't be explained. You'll want to do that with stories preemptively. And one way you can do this is you can get information through the interview. One of the easiest questions to ask is, can you tell me about what problem this role is solving for the company? Very important question, because if they tell you the problem they're trying to solve with this role, then you can bring out things to match that and give them information that they can chew on that is about you solving that problem. So before that, everybody's just a number. They're comparing strengths, weaknesses, etc. But really, you got to find out why it is they're looking for someone in this role, and then you can give them the ammo that they need. And it may, just because you can solve that problem. Okay, so for instance, one company, they did a lot of work with a particular company that made pacemakers. My company, and I specifically as a developer on the team, built prototypes for that company, and it was the competitor, the one that I was interviewing at. So they're like, oh my God, that was such a good story. And I found out about them as a competitor because I asked that question. They said, well, we need X, Y, and Z because this is our competitor. They're doing it. I was like, wow, that's interesting. So that automatically, regardless of any of the objections, made me an attractive candidate. Tremere, did you have some control and influence tricks that you can use during the interview that you wanted to share? I'll give him a couple seconds. All right, anyway, he might not be mic'd up. All right, so we're trying a hot mic in this one. Shall I continue, Chris?
All right, so there's actually a whole bunch that you can do during the interview to show control. So some of the things that you need to keep in mind while you're doing this, you may have an HR director or HR specialist, you may have recruiters. Shows you've got some power. They're interested. Here you can talk about making value to them, and it's really about how you can show influence. During that process, you're going to be pushing back on them. You're going to be talking towards what your value is. And as Koby had said earlier, they're looking for someone to assist bring value into that organization. In any way that you can interject in that discussion during that interview process, you can take control. There's also a whole bunch of psychological tricks depending on how comfortable you are in this space. If you get to an interview and you can make the interviewer talk about them for an hour, they're going to leave that interview thinking you are the best candidate ever because they just talked about themselves, their favorite subject. So there's lots of things that you can play with here. If you're nervous about interviews, if you don't know how to do this, talk to us. Myself, Koby, a bunch of us mentor a whole bunch of people here. And there's a bunch of things that we can do here to help you out. One of the worst things you can do is go into an interview timid and nervous, thinking that you don't have any control. You're just at the whim of the interviewer, because it shows nervousness, it shows lack of kind of control and willingness to drive. So you need to understand what's actually happening in an interview and make sure that whatever you're playing your game, just like a sports match or anything, the interview is just as much yours as it is the interviewer.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Tremere. I asked him to talk in. He was my buddy through this process, so we bounced things off of each other, and I was able to kind of talk with him and then support him in some things too. So anyway, all right. Continue, Chris. Looking good. All right. So, as he just said, you're basically interviewing them. The interviewee is not a powerless role. Yes, they are interviewing you. They're the alpha in this scenario. You are the beta, and they have what you want or need, and you have, you want what they have and need, but you're not powerless in this whole situation. So the concept I want to get across, that is one I used in management a lot too, is the concept of the fit. Some people fit for particular roles, some do not. I want you to take all of the emotion out of this completely, and this will also help you with mental toughness and the highs and lows that might happen through the interviewing and job placement process. Some people are great at what they do, but they will not fit in a particular org. And I had to get this concept across to some of the people that reported to me, because we would find great people at the time. We were looking for the best and top talent, and they would come in the door, but they would not survive in that org because of the culture. It was just, at that particular time, it was very entrepreneurial, very dynamic. So anybody that came from a large company where there was a box just didn't fit. So when people understood the fit, it took kind of the emotion out of them thinking, okay, well, I'm interviewing this person and they want the job so bad, I'm going to let them down. Well, the thing is, you might bring them in and they might love to work here, but then they're going to hate you because they're not a fit, and it's a horrible environment for them to thrive in. Likewise, as an employee, you might find a great company, really want to go through the whole process, be very invested in interviewing, and then you might get cut. Don't take it personal. You just weren't a fit for them, and somebody else might have been a better fit. There's a fit for you out there somewhere. So this is also for leadership when it comes to ending a relationship. Sometimes someone's not a fit, and you're holding them back from a really good position somewhere else. Just don't worry about it emotionally. I know people that also are looking for another job, and they found a better job completely, and it's better for them, but they like the one they're at and they feel torn. Well, you have to look at the fit, and then you have to decide whether or not it's good for you and good for them, because at the end of the day, it is a contract. It is a business decision. Everybody wants to be happy, of course, but people are investing money in you and time and effort. And likewise, you don't want to be there if you don't want to be there, and they don't want you there if you're not happy. So know why you are looking. This is really important. You want to know your motivation for looking. Do you need a job? Do you need anything? Do you need a job tomorrow? that's going to skew the way you look at the job process. Or are you looking to upgrade from your current position? Do you want more money for some reason? Do you want another title? Do you want more freedom? What is it you're looking for? The job is not always about the money. There's a lot of different factors going on in employment. And I had to also teach this, is that it's not always about the money. I had people that they were wired that way. Yes, it's about the money. This candidate's doing really good. We need to give them more money. And I was like, that may not be true, because they keep talking about wanting to be a lead developer on the team. And I had one of my subordinates actually get really surprised because the person lost their mind and used 4-letter cuss words at them because they thought they were going to be a lead. They didn't care about the money whatsoever. We went to lunch and I had to talk him off of a ledge because it completely blindsided him. It's not always about the money. A lot of times it is, but it's not always about the money. So when you're thinking about interviewing companies, some of the things that are resources at your disposal are Glassdoor and what we call open source intelligence skills, going out and finding out information about things. The internet is your friend here. But you also have to take Glassdoor with a grain of salt. Employees will have a lot of motivation for trashing a company when they're mad. They won't have a lot of motivation for going on there and saying everything is great. There's nothing really in it for them. There might be incentive programs that companies use to gamify that, but really you'll see a company and you'll see a lot of things trashed on there. You read about them and you try and find a commonality and figure out what they're really saying, because it may not be the problem that they're really saying. There may be a problem and it might not be the way they're describing it. But it also can be good intelligence on a company. If you see nothing but 100% completely sanitized, great reviews, their game in the system. And it's probably not a good place to work at. Companies will manage perception a lot. And intel can be found everywhere. You can find a lot of intel on hiring patterns, which I saw. Actually, LinkedIn was using hiring patterns, showing you, when they're hiring with their employee headcount. That's a great intelligence. This is all data for you for whenever you're looking for a job and how you're going to position yourself if you're made an offer. A little note on trashing companies on Glassdoor. Some people believe in it. Some people don't. Let me tell you a story. So in the process, I was interviewing at a company in California and everything was great. The recruiter called me late at night, which happens, said, I've got a green light from everyone on the team. We're going to make you an offer. I'm going to send you the paperwork. We're going to talk about it in the morning. Talked it over with my wife. Everything was great. I was going to accept the job. I did have one question though, because they're in California. Am I going to be working from 12 to 8 p.m.? So I sent them that email. The morning came and I didn't get a call. And then I got a flustered recruiter on a phone. He says, this is going to be a very difficult phone call. He says, there's been a mistake and I'm sorry, but we're not going to make an offer. This never is supposed to happen, like ever. I've talked to so many recruiters that have apologized to me on behalf of the industry. This is either an inexperienced recruiter. I know from working recruiters, this never is supposed to happen. So I just went on Intel train. I was asking him a lot of questions to try and figure out why. He was flustered. He was on his heels. He was telling me everything. Turns out one guy, just as they were about to sign the paperwork, thought somebody else was a better fit because on one particular technology he had more experience. And then that was it. And then the whole team swung in that direction. And then they made that person the offer. They sealed the offer before they called me. And he told me that. It was horrible. So I talked to Tremere and I was like, nobody does this anymore. This is insane. And he says, well, the environment's changing. And also, this is what Glassdoor is for. You never want this out there on Glassdoor about your company because nobody will take your offers seriously and it really adds a lot of stress to the process. So I thought a lot about this, and my opinion on this is that feedback of any type to a company is extremely valuable, even if it's negative feedback, because it can tell them something. If they have a problem with a recruiter in their company, they're going to want to know that. So for that reason, I gave them nothing. I said nothing. I moved on It was a weird situation, but I was like, it takes effort for me to put that on Glassdoor. It also, I don't feel right about trashing someone, and maybe that guy just messed up completely and he's the beginning of his career. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I don't want to add anything of value to that company based on the situation and what had happened. So I did not trash them. So in my opinion, you don't do it. In some other people's opinions, they will gladly put things on Glassdoor because they feel like they're doing something for the community to warn others. Take your pick. I have no judgment. That's just my personal decision. So the employer versus the employee. There's two perspectives here. You have to remember that. Like I said, money versus title, it's not always about the money. Your career really is your own responsibility as an employee. So when you're going out there, you're looking to get a job, make sure you focus on your career and think about your career and whether or not the job fits and the move fits for you. Nobody's going to think about your career except for you. The process is impersonal. The process is unfeeling. A lot of companies will hire people and they have all the intention of giving them reviews, giving them raises, giving them kudos, but there's multiple people involved in the decision-making process. Some of them may have other things on their plate. They don't get to it. The bottom line is it's your responsibility to go forth and then make sure that your needs are being met, because otherwise they just might not be met. Yearly evaluation. I went into a company and I found out that there was nobody that had yearly evaluations. For the history of the company, they were like 6, 8, 7 years old. I was like, oh my God. No wonder they have churn. No wonder people are leaving. Nobody goes up unless they threaten to quit. The bosses weren't bothered by that. That was just the accepted method of doing things there. So instead of stewing and having all of this resentment, it may just be the process, Maybe you have to go get and secure another job offer in order to bring to your employer to let them recognize what your market value is. In the interest of time, we won't go down that, but I know someone has some stories about that. We can maybe get it the questions time. A company will generally do what you let them to do. It's not personal. Any of the transgressions, it's not personal. It's just the way it is. You might say, well, it's the culture they've created. Companies are at different stages of evolution. Sometimes things get slipped. Sometimes it takes someone making a stand before something changes. Just things to remember. So let's talk about the resume now. Section 3. So ATS systems and resume keywords. We're going to talk about some things here. Applicant tracking systems. Another thing is the Neon Temple will help you. Anybody that is in the temple that wants help, we will help you for free. We do resume reviews all the time. I do them. Tremere does them. I hear about the ones that Tremere does. No, I'm just kidding. They're like, oh my God, why did you think my resume is good? No, it's all good. Everything's good. Or we're just giving you feedback. We're going to talk about JobScan, which is a site that I found in my process, and also the concept of continuously improving. So let's talk about first applicant tracking systems. These are the robot lords of no. If your resume is eaten by the robot lords and just spit out and chewed and spit on the floor, don't take that personal either. It is a robot. It's designed to help the process. Sometimes they'll take a tasty nibble and you'll get through. Why? An applicant tracking system is a software application that enables the electronic handling of recruitment and hiring needs. Robots like this, they weed you out, weed all the candidates out based on preset criteria, based on info inside of your resume, based on keywords. So they might be looking for different keywords. The job description is a big, insightful mess of keywords on what they're looking for. The big takeaway from this is you need to kind of customize your resume so that it can get past the ATS, because if it doesn't, you've got no hope. This part, the early part, is one of the biggest task costs for companies. when they're looking at candidates, determining who they need to spend their time with, because time is money. That's why they almost universally now use ATS systems. They need a mass of candidates weeded down to something more manageable. And so they might program it arbitrarily and not really in a very, interview skill, ATS programming skill. They might put keywords in there that are in the job description you don't have. So pay a lot of attention to the job description. Pretty much every company uses these in one form or another. So the Temple Lords, Neon Temple, we're the Lords of Yes. So we will help you. Your resume sucks. Trust us. You need to have someone look at your resume. And don't take that personal either, because every writer needs an editor. When you write something, it looks great, but you need a second pair of eyes to look at it. That's why in the software development process, there is a pull request, merge request, depending on if you're using GitHub or GitLab. You basically need someone to look at your stuff before it goes out there. When I was in art school, yes, I have a degree in art. When you're doing basically a self-portrait, there's this thing called familiarity blindness. You're doing a self-portrait, you're looking at yourself, and it looks like you because you've been looking at it for so long. The way we broke that trick was by holding your self-portrait up to a mirror. Instantly, you see all of the problems in your self-portrait because your mind can't trick you anymore. And I was so amazed by that. So whenever you're doing something and actively into it, you need to basically have some people take a look at it and edit it. And we will do that for you. So here's a fact in the process. 99% of people never looked at my resume. It seemed to me, at least, no person in the interview process had even a passing familiarity with my resume or my work history beyond the recruiter in the very beginning. So what does that mean? That means the applicant tracking system got me through there, and then eventually I ended up in the interview process, and they were looking at it, pretty much cold. And I was a tricky hire. So why would you even do a resume? Because if you're hired, this resume goes into basically a CYA file with supporting evidence for debugging what went wrong if you're not a good fit at the company. In other words, if you're not a good fit, they're gonna want to look back, see, well, why did we make this hire, to learn from it. So your resume goes there. Also, your resume is in effect a legal document of your work history. So you need to make sure your facts are correct. And I want to say this because I say get the interview, get the interview. Do not lie to get the interview. Do not cheat to get the interview. Do not steal to get to the interview. You just use common, normal things that would make you look more attractive as a candidate. Well, I won't say they're normal, but they're clever, but they'll make you look better as a candidate. An admission, I always went in cold. In other words, when I interviewed people, and I interviewed at least 100 people at one particular location, I always went into the interview cold because I trusted my people skills and my people reading skills to tell me if the person was a good fit or not. And then I would use the resume to backfill on that. Maybe a lot of other people do that too. I don't know. I've had training as well when it comes to this sort of thing. So some companies, they just, they schedule an interview and they put somebody out there, and the people, they don't even know they know they're interviewing. They have to get through that, but they don't know what's expected out of that job. They're not trained. So interviewing is basically like a pen test of your career and your resume. So make sure you can get it back past the ATS and make sure that it is good. So there's tools out there and ways you can get help, especially versus the ATS. Let's talk about that. So LinkedIn makeover. Thank you, Tremere. Whenever I was interviewing, I didn't realize, because, hey, it's been 20 years since I've done a resume. I didn't realize that LinkedIn is like your resume. It is the backup resume. People will take a look at your candidate, and then they're going to go look at your LinkedIn. Now, my LinkedIn was very marketing speak, very self-promoting, promoting my other companies. that was not good for me if I'm looking for a job, because it immediately put a thing in their mind. Hey, why is this person looking, right? This makes no sense at all. So after Tremere pointed that out to me in a conversation, which it was very brutal and direct, which I loved, I was like, wow, you're exactly right. It doesn't look like I have my whole heart in this, and I'm not reflecting it through my LinkedIn. So I minimized myself and my ventures, and I redid my LinkedIn so that it talked a lot about, my utility as an employee. So before, interest really sucked. That was big for me. I got like maybe 5% feedback, interviews, callback. After I did my LinkedIn makeover, made it match my resume, things shot through the roof for me. I was getting pretty much an interview out of a company with every submission. Some things you could do with your LinkedIn is you can post 2 times a week. You can post on topics. So when they go and they look you up, they can see that you're all about whatever it is that you're trying to get a job about. You can also set up alerts, scanning alerts for particular keywords with LinkedIn, and they will let you know via email or whatever that you have jobs available that just dropped that you might be a match for. They also have a paid product. So that was the brutal truth, is that I needed to kind of minimize my entrepreneurial nature, and I changed my titles because they were my ventures. And I basically put it out there that my utility, and the fact that nobody really looked at my resume very closely, I got the interview and I was able to explain to people, yes, I have these ventures, but they have little to do with me, and I want to work on stuff and not chase the business and not have to be running around with all of that stuff. I've done management for a very long time. I want to get back to the tech because I really realized by now that I'm an engineer at heart. The guild helped a lot with that. 20 years ago, there was nothing like that. Hackers were criminals, and most of the hackers I knew, were criminals. So you couldn't go out and be a cybersecurity researcher. You couldn't share intel. It's an amazing time right now for cybersecurity. All right, I'll get off on that. So the temple helps. Neon Temple in the future can offer a class if anybody's interested on this kind of stuff. We are not going to go super deep into resumes, and we could talk a day on that because we've done it before. We actually, and the training did multiple days on resume reviews and how to write a good resume. We're in Tampa, but we can help anyone anywhere. Members of this guild are real world practitioners, and we do real world skills training. We did a baseline series last year, and everyone in the class got a job within, I think, 3 months, 90%, and then one got a job a little bit later. So always be resumeing and improving your resume, and reach out. Maybe we can help you. So these are the 3 big things, the takeaways, because it gets way more technical from here. Reviews matter. You need to have people review your resume a lot. Different people review it over and over again so that you can, take a look at it. There's this concept of having a master image, which is a master resume that you take things out of to customize for a particular opportunity. So your resume your master may be huge, but the one you submit may be small. Why? Because this is choice, that is choice, this is choice. Also because these have the keywords you want, etc. You're customizing it for it, but you have a ledger of your strengths, and it's huge. You just want to make it small because nobody's going to read like a huge resume. One of the technical things we'll give you as a tidbit is when you're talking about a job and the time you spent there and the things you did, you need to think about the impact that you had. Tell stories about impact in 1 line. Impact. This is what I did, and this was the impact. Because you don't want to throw a bunch of jargon up there because it doesn't differentiate you. Impact does. So each little line, what was the impact? Okay, then I'm going to put a preface in that this is what I did, and this was the impact in the org. I did X, Y, and Z and it improved X, Y, and Z and percentages. You want to have real verifiable facts that people can reference, because the rest of the people out there will put a bunch of floof in their resume and it's not tangible for them to talk about. So, job scan. All right, I'm gonna kill the presentation again because I want to show you this. JobScan's a website that lots of recruiters said, oh my goodness, you need to check this out because everybody's using it and it's amazing. It's how to write a resume step by step. It's not perfect, but it tells you about, formats which are right for ATSs because of these robots read your resume. How to put in your contact information, different tips. And the best thing about this is it's free. And I think somewhere on here, they have actually a location. Yeah, hey, things you need to know about the ATS, they're telling you too. There's a location in here somewhere where you can take a job and you can throw that job, the description in, and it will compare it to your resume and see if they were able to find keywords inside your resume to match this job and give you a score. Build your free resume. It's on here somewhere. I recommend jobscan.co. Looking around in there, I have very well-respected recruiters in the industry that told me, hey, you need to take a look at this. And then I would talk to them a little later. Hey, did you take a look at that? Yes, I did. Well, you need to look at it again because there's a lot of good stuff on there and your resume is deviated from that somewhat through the reviews. Good point. Thank you so much. Get back in there. Forgive my presenting skills. All right. Use it as a submission prep. So go through that. That's a really good free way to have a robot tell you about what the other robots are seeing about your resume. So resumeing never stops. Your resume, you should think of it as a working document. You're never going to get to this plateau where you have the perfect resume and you never need to touch it again. You might get there if you get a job, but you're going to have to touch it again eventually. If anything, just to keep track of your successes. That's right. So when you're employed, you should have a resume and you should have a working copy of your successes. Why? Because you might have job doubt. Sometimes your existence is at the whim of the employer and whether or not you're having a good day. If you have a resume and it looks good, you don't have to use it, but you're just like, okay, this is who I am and this is what I've done. It helped me early in my career gaining confidence because I did a lot of crazy stuff. I was trying to make a buck in the world and I went to art school. So I was definitely trying to go out there and put myself out there and really conquer shipping code. So you need to remember that you should never stop working on your resume because really it is the working copy of your career, right? Your career is your own. You're going to have your career for a very long time. Your resume is like where you're putting down your notes. It's your journal for your career. And write down your successes too, because what happens is when you lose a job or you move on to another job, you're not going to remember them because you'll be in a stress position and you'll be feeling bad and you need a job now, right? Because you lost one. So it's easier to write down your successes, put them on there. A good resume, in my opinion, should answer all of the questions, at least in the beginning for the recruiter. And also at the end of the process for comparison when it comes to them looking at you versus another candidate for that job offer. I'll repeat that again. It should answer all of the questions. This means whenever you're in the interview process or you get reviews and someone asks you a question about your resume, holy moly, stop and say, why did they do that? And then adjust your resume because you need to answer that question before they even ask it. They should be able to look at your resume, get a really good feel of who you are. Maybe ask some softball questions here and there, but nothing big. And I went through that process and it definitely helped. And I was always coming out of a situation saying, why did they ask that? And then figuring out a way I could work that into my resume because there's nothing more powerful than someone asking you a question, you answering it, and then you referencing it in your resume. So let's talk about all the actors in this this play. Really, we are in a different environment now, and it's got its own technologies. We'll get into that. There's candidates, the other ones. There's network that can help you, and then there's also the employers. So right now, the time we're in and the technology at hand, this can be like your armor and weapons. Yes, I had to put in some D&D references. So what does that mean? So right now, the time that we have California salaries. In other words, work from home is really big right now. People are starting to move back from the office, but all over really the world, companies realize they can get people from anywhere, especially in this environment, especially hard to find tech like in cybersecurity. So a lot of people are working on the East Coast for West Coast companies and getting West Coast salaries. And that overall for everyone has raised salaries just a little bit. A lot of companies are having problems with this. Certifications. Right now in cybersecurity in particular, certifications matter, and HR are using certifications as a way to kind of differentiate you from other people. They're using it as a way to get you out of there, through the applicant tracking system. And in the cybersecurity world, there's the ones that are respected, and then there's the ones that the industry knows. Respected ones are more hands-on labs, et cetera. And then there's the ones the industry knows, CISSP. They are like, this person knows security. If they have that, check the box, put it in the CYA folder. Get both if you think it'll help you. It's something I learned. Certifications didn't matter much 20 years ago. Now they matter a lot. So I'm definitely beefing up my certification repertoire. A lot of companies right now in this time, they see the news, they're scared to death. They know we need security, but they don't know how to get it. And they also see everybody getting hacked. So like, we need that. The board says we need that. And CFO says, okay, there's a budget. And then we hire that person. And then they're like, well, what do we do with them? I don't know. How are they going to fit here? It's okay. That happens a lot. It's par for the road for our industry. But you also have to understand that there's compliance and there's security, and they're completely different things. Yes, there's some overlap. I'll explain why, because I know that I just pissed off a lot of people. Compliance is a driver from outside of the company. It is an industry saying, we have this industry. We need you to comply by what we believe is security in our industry. So here is our compliance program, and this is our standard, and you do that. That is completely different from people actually fighting threats. And if there's ever inside of a company a real initiative for security and a real initiative for compliance, they need to be treated separately, but in harmony. That is my educated opinion. Also, because in companies, you will have what is called compliance island syndrome. It is like a company saying, well, we need to get through compliance, so we're going to section off only the part of the company that we think is going to get through that best. That's like you saying, okay, well, I only really want to protect the head and chest of my baby. Yeah, because, I get a rubber stamp and everything's fine. Also the tech, there's a lot of new tech right now. LinkedIn, you can tell on LinkedIn to recruiters that your status when they pay for the recruiting platform is that you're available for a job. You can make a click, you can give them some keywords, they will find you. And they will know that you're not maybe out there trying to apply, but they will find you and they'll bring you stuff. Also, you can use the search alerts that I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of job sites out there. There are ones that will text you jobs. There are groups of local people that will help you with jobs, text about them. There's special interest websites. There's one for cryptocurrency. If you want to be in that world in any regard, there's just a hiring site for that. Then there's also these databases. There's recruiting groups like Loose Knit all over the country. And you can submit your information and resume to them. They'll put you in their database, and then they all feed off of it. There's a lot of small independent mom and pop shop type recruiting outfits. These are the ones that I recommend the most. Some people don't like recruiters because they try and beat you to a job and apply you. Some of them don't do that. They're really ethical. They get permission. They tell you about the job. And the companies that pay them know this, and then they have like a bead on jobs that don't go public, or they get the first look at a job before it goes public. That compliance and security thing, by the way, if you're in a security position and you're looking for a job, knowing the difference can really put you to the top of the line. So let's talk about the candidates. That's the candidate that's out there preparing for the job that you're looking to get and they're looking to get while you sleep. Don't forget about them in any phase of the process, because they're out there. Even if you're all the way to the end of the panel interview, they're out there. They're lurking around. Other people are being considered. The networking part, the humankind. This is kind of already covered some of this in the temple with resume assistance, but you can get job leads from friends. You can ask for help. Super senior guys, they fall on the wayside because they're arrogant. They don't ask for help. There's a lot of stupid resume fails. I was fed that line by Tremere. I know he was talking about me because I didn't ask for help at all in the beginning. Like, hello, everybody here can help you. And I was like, well, you know, maybe I'll just put this out. Maybe it'll be good enough. No, you need someone to look at your stuff, and you need people to try and help you. Don't be arrogant. Asking for help is a great situation when you're looking for a job. You know, my marketing language, somebody had to tell me about it. Anyway, recruiter etiquette. Let's talk about that. When you're networking, working with recruiters, a good recruiter is worth their weight. A bad one is terrible. But you always need to be brief with them, be gone. Talk to them, get the information, give them what they need, be gone. They're moving people as quickly as they can. Be very communicative if they're communicative to you. If they get you an interview, do not no-show. Why? Because even the bad ones talk to the good ones, and they will blackball you, and you will find, like someone I know, that after one no-show of an interview, and then maybe 2 days later you told them, oh, I wasn't feeling good that day, that no recruiter will talk to you in your area of expertise again. Employers, this is one of the actors in this play. They need people. They are people too. I got some of the best advice and feedback from people that didn't give me a job. And I let them know that was really good advice. They were human and they were part of the process and they wanted to help me, especially because they thought my resume was so bad. They're like, hey, we're gonna, by the way, okay, I loved it. It was free. So that was section 5. The application process. Let's touch on some parts of the process. We're going to talk about some application strategies, applying. What does Agile mean? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome and rejection, because that's something that's out there for sure. All right, strategies. Variability is good when you're applying for lots of unseen reasons. You want a targeted resume. You don't want to spam. I will admit I did spam a bit in the beginning. I got no feedback whatsoever. Not even from, past the applicant tracking systems. The reason why is because if you put out a resume and it goes to one database and it's another database and they cross compare, because some of these companies do, and it's the same one, they don't think you're interested. They're not going to spend time on you. But if you change it up a little bit for here and there, yeah, they're gonna love it. They're gonna love that you spoke to them and their needs. So the way to do applying the strategy is basically to customize. So applying. So when you're applying, you're going to find a job listing, and then you're going to find it on another place, and then another place, another place. Why? Companies will put out a job listing, and then an aggregator, a job listing aggregator will grab that or scrape it, and then they will put it out there hoping to get a recruiting fee off of you. So, and then recruiters will relist stuff like a month after it's out there. Either way, planting seeds is fine. This is like planting seeds. You're throwing something out there hoping something will grow. But in my opinion, if you find that pattern in a job listing, you need to go directly to their website and apply through their website. That alone may get you put to the top, because they may have said, okay, we applied to the website, we put it on LinkedIn, and they may forget about LinkedIn because it's got 500 resumes. But yeah, we got some here, and they actively, applied directly to us. You got to improve all the time. I hope you heard me when I said, why did they ask that? Because you need to adjust your resume every time someone asks you a question. One of the reasons for doing this is because when you're improving yourself and improving the process, you need to ask yourself what you really want, and use this process as a way to figure that out. You might not know. I didn't in the beginning. I was a coder for many, many years. I happened to work in AppSec under a secure environment that was third-party regulated, and I had all of the stuff we had to do, but I didn't recognize that. I mean, it was security and it was fun, and it took me meeting the guild to really pull the desire of that, the fun out of it again. In my mind, I was kind of a coder, I just build code, ship it, etc. But that was an aspect that was really important. And when I started to see that that was valuable, yeah, I was like, this is the direction I'm going for the rest of my life. I have planted my flag. I am loving it. So this process came to me, because I kept asking myself, what do I really want? I kept using the resume as a way to manage my career and what I'm doing and moving forward. Love you, brothers and sisters. So let's talk about imposter syndrome and rejection. So imposter syndrome, let's just look it up. Yeah, psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has persistent internalized fear of being exposed as imposter. So in my opinion, why does this exist? This exists because you don't know how good you are because you've been doing it so long. I've seen a lot of people that have had a lot of doubts about their career, and they're just so unbelievably good that it almost became a level of mastery for them. And then they didn't realize, okay, I'm this good, and that's why I feel like I'm an imposter. Now, some people, well, you find very few people have complete bravado of their skills. They're dangerous in cybersecurity. I'll just say that. But imposter syndrome is real because it's a doubt that you can have. You have to remember that people don't know how to hire security. So when you have this feeling in the process, focus on why they're hiring. Ask questions. Focus on the fit, not on yourself. Why? Because you're going to get rejected. It is a numbers game in a way. You will get rejected often. You will get rejected a lot. If you're not getting rejected, you're not playing the game right. I should have charted my applications and successes, but I will say I probably put out about 300 applications in a period of months. Towards the end, I slowed down quite a bit because I had hit a system where I was actually getting lots of interviews, and I had a 35-hour week of interviews one time. That was really tricky. So and that went from like sucking wind in the very beginning. Let me just put that in perspective. So the interview process. You want to get the interview, you want to prepare for the interview, you want to take all of the interviews, do all of the interviews, and then hopefully you'll get an offer. This is what the process looks like. Get the interview, respond quickly to any interview requests or requests for more information. Take the interview, even if you don't want the job. It's good practice. This was extremely important advice to me by Tremere. Because that's the one that led to the job for me. I had an interview available. I looked at the position and I had second thoughts. And I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling it. But that one actually, when I went to the interview, it was magic because they were looking for someone
and they had been looking for months and having a little bit of trouble. And, here we are. So I was really glad that I took that interview because everybody was great. Let me just put it that way. And it turned out to be something really wonderful. After each interview, this is extremely important. You want to follow up in an email with something personal within 24 hours. Ask to be forwarded to the people that interviewed you. If you don't do this, then you're being an adult and you're being unappreciative. The reason why? Because they spent a lot of time to interview you. You want to make an impression, and they're probably interviewing other people. So thank them. Thank the recruiter especially, because they're the ones that are putting themselves out there for you the most. It's their job to find a good match. If they don't find a good match, they're not doing a good job. So they will do all kind of due diligence with you. So you want to thank them. You want to thank the team. You want to mention something about the interview, mention something personal. Make it a human experience. Keep going with the fact that you were in front of them. You're a human being and no longer just a candidate. Always listen to the questions they ask. Always take notes. I took lots of notes in my interviews. Every time somebody asks a question, I take notes. So BSing versus saying, I don't know. In cybersecurity, you kind of want to err on the side of caution and say, well, if I don't know that, I'm going to look it up. You can look it up right in the interview. I had a situation where somebody asked me about server-side request forgery, and I didn't remember that name. I just called it like web crawling or resource directory calling. We'd been operating under a different name for so long, I forgot the official textbook name of it. So I looked like an idiot, but I looked it up in the interview. I knew it, and I told them enough about it for them to, relax a little bit. I was like, why did I forget the textbook name? But then again, that was on me in preparation. I am always in the favor of telling someone I don't know something, and I will look it up because that is something that shows ingenuity and honesty. Again, when people ask you questions, why do they ask that? Also write it down because you might need to do a little bit of homework. People ask you a lot of random questions about things that you've done so long that you've forgotten. So preparing, let's talk about that. Always be preparing. You need to prepare for the interview. If you can't talk to the majority of the topics on the job listing, that's your fault. You need to prepare. We'll talk about some of the secrets that I learned there. OS, looking people up, Glassdoor, job listings, important stuff. You can find a lot about a company also when you're doing pen testing by the job listings they put out, especially if they tell you their whole stack. So you need to figure things out. It was funny because I interviewed some companies and they didn't tell me anything about their stack. I was like, this is impressive. So some educational resources. Pluralsight, I have a subscription. Why? Because if I don't know it, I know it. Just give me a couple hours through Pluralsight. I mean, yeah, you're going to want to have operational experience. I feel like I have that now. But if you need to learn something, Pluralsight's great. I don't know why. I've got a lot of different, resources, but Pluralsight for me is pretty easy. You can Google all day long top interview questions. You can Google that for your particular field and figure out what people are asking and then prepare for that. Udemy is great. I'm going to put a shout out to Heath Adams, TCM Security, or the Cyber Mentor as he's known. He's got great courses when it comes to entry level and even, people that aren't particularly skilled in the red teaming or the offensive side of security. Great stuff. Everybody talks about him and his courses. And also, Udemy puts them out for free all the time. He's always running deals. It's like the guy is just wanting to help the world or something. So shout out to that. Stack Skills. I found a lot of really interesting courses on Stack Skills. I found a course on there that it was a cybersecurity course by an Iranian hacker. Now that was a random course to find, I will say the presentation skills weren't top notch, but the information was, and how much he could do with so little amazed me. So I was like, wow, this is random and I love it. Google Alerts. Look up Google Alerts because you can put alerts for keywords and Google will send you an email of things that pop up on the internet. You'll find a lot of really good information on all types of things that way. Twitter is great for cybersecurity, for learning about things that people might be asking right then in job interviews. Reddit is also great. Found a lot of great subreddits. Humble Bundle, they will put out gobs of books for a very cheap amount of money, all about one particular subject. And you can just say, boom, I'm getting a whole subject on this, C# coding or whatever. Boom, getting a whole subject on whatever, is your flavor. There's so many books out there, and they bundle them together, make them super cheap, and then they sell them that way. It's kind of like a, deal of the week site. Amazon Books is great. I don't know if you've heard of Amazon or that they sell books, but they're great. If you're an AppSec like I am, Tanya Yanka, she's out there. We Hack Purple. You can look her up, find her all over the internet. She's got a great book out right now about AppSec. I was like, I'm getting that. Because she's an evangelist. She loves it. You can tell it. You can tell by her presentation style. One of my favorite presentations of her, she was basically, they scrunched her whole presentation, so she had to tell it at rapid speed. It was great because I listened to most things on Pluralsight at 2 times speed. So she was just out there, boom, information. It was amazing. It was like a Broadway performance. Anyway, the interview, now it really begins. So these are the interview steps. Typically, you're going to have a pre-screen where they test the fit, with you, typically an internal recruiter. If you're in technical field, they're going to have a technical gatekeeper, somebody that knows more about the on-job, hands-on stuff that you do. Then there's going to be an on-site or a virtual on-site. I call these panels because literally it's a panel of people interviewing you. Everybody's testing you. And then if it's a really good place and the fit is really good, they will give you an offer. Recruiters will do interview screening, basically. They will ask you, are you actively interviewing? They want to know if you're serious about getting placed. They're going to say, what is your salary range is, I think, the acceptable one right now. Know your range for the position. My favorite thing was to just basically tell them, it's not really about the money right now for me. It's more about the fit. So what is the range that they're looking for? Then they just tell you, well, they're looking between X and X, and I don't want to waste anybody's time if you're not in that range. Yeah, that's a good range, or maybe it's not, and then you can tell them no. So just reverse it. It's okay to not discuss salary early on, especially even in the interview. In sales theory, let me just put it this way. We were talking about like the match and the fit and everything. The best salesmen in sales theory are the ones that disqualify a prospect the fastest because it's a numbers game. You don't want to waste time on people kicking tires, et cetera. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to figure out, okay, what are you looking for? Is he really looking? Am I really going to spend time with this person and really get something out of it? They're trying to figure all that out. So they want to know, they want people to ask questions too. They want you to ask them questions because that shows that you're interested. Even through the whole interview process, sometimes they will email you, say, hey, any questions? The reason why is because they're talking on their end about whether or not they want to give you an offer, and they're trying to figure out if you're still interested. So sometimes throw some questions in way, have some pre-prepared ones. It's a good negotiating tactic to give them pre-prepared benign questions to let them know you're interested, even if you're interviewing at 10 places. Then the technical gatekeeper. This may also take the form of a test. There's these things called the CCAT and the Wonderlic. These are tests that are designed to test how you operate under pressure. They're like cognitive tests. There's like 40 questions. They give you like 12 to 15 minutes to answer all of them, and they're all hard. You will never really answer all of them. So you have to go in having a strategy. You have to move fast, and they want to know how accurate you are. Wrong answers don't count against you. So basically, you go into the situation, you're just making, and you can prepare for these. You can take preparation CCATs, preparation Wonderlicks. I took many of them because I guess I'm in a leadership position, and somebody told the industry, hey, if they're in a leadership position, they should probably take this test to qualify. Know where your weak areas are, because you can prepare this. Actually, I fell in love with math preparing for this. I never knew that I would do that because I hated math. And that's why I joked I got into software development, is so the computer could do it for me. So what do you do if you're ghosted in this process too? One thing I learned from sales is called what's the close the file email. You basically send them an email and you say, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Just speak the truth. This usually means you're interviewing other candidates or the job might not be available. Is it okay if I close the file on this one and move on? If there's any inkling of interest whatsoever in you at all possible, they will email you back, and you've got nothing to lose by sending that, because you're interested, right? You want to find out. So let's talk about technical interviews. The gatekeeper really may not be someone that's personable. Most gatekeepers were a 60-minute meeting where 55 of them, they asked me questions nonstop. And then at the end, I would get perhaps 5 minutes to ask questions. I would ask 3 questions. They would only answer 1. This happened over and over again. They're not meant to be your buddy in that. They're just trying to figure out if you can do the job. They will be out there. You can use the gatekeeper, you can use the job description, and you can use the interview process, and you can compare them to find out, really, does all of it match? For instance, there was one company I interviewed at. Job description was one thing. The team's questions were something completely different. And then I met a manager that said that they were having problems with the team and they needed some talent in this particular area. Why? Because the team wanted to onboard someone to help them with their problems and not the one that management wanted and was trying to get an active resource for. There was no help. I was never going to get that job because the team didn't want someone that the management was putting in front of them. And they're going to keep doing that until somebody figures it out. They probably still are doing it. I don't know. So you might have, if you're technical, you might have coding tests. They might give you an immediate audit. Boom, let's do some coding. They might have something taken home that you need to take home. I didn't prepare for this early on. This is something I feel like I can handle now. It's something you need to prepare for these. It's weird. I was an introvert coder early in my career. I just sat and coded, we did, maybe pair programming where somebody would look at your code, but it was through the computer. They didn't stand over your shoulder and make you code. That was so weird to me. But anyway, sometimes you will meet someone in the interview process that thinks that they're a rock star. I met someone like that, and we had technical difficulties during the interview process, and that young rock star sank me, and the recruiter told me so. Because he was like, wow, I'm interviewing my superior. They asked me to interview somebody who's been in the industry a really long time. I'm going to ask the most nuanced questions I can possibly until I find a hole. And then I'm going to say, wow, this guy should know everything. That another problem, what was it going to be like with me on the team with that guy if he already had a beef with somebody he had never even met? So there'll be lots of little things like this, and you need to just pay attention to it as you go through these interviews, especially the panel interview. You'll get the most information possible out of that. So let's talk more about the on-site, because it's hostile territory. Really, when you go into an on-site, you're going to hit a panel. They're going to have their needs. Everyone in the process may not be invested. They may just get pulled out of meetings and thrown into a room with you or put on, a stream. They only want to know if you make their job easier. That's their whole purpose for being there. They might not even look at your resume. This is your chance to find out as much as you possibly can about the company, the work you're going to do, and who you're going to work with. So ask questions when you go into this territory. That will also give them an easy way to do the interview, especially if they have no experience doing it. They will talk about themselves. If they talk about themselves when you ask questions, this is really important because that's a good thing. If they just come in talking about themselves, that's a bad interview because it's not about them. It's about the company trying to find out as much as possible about you and getting information about you from the employer's side. So if you have someone come in and they're talking all about themselves the entire interview, it's probably not going to go well or a good fit. Because eventually they're going to have to train you because they don't know anything about you. So here's something really important, so you don't have to think about it. If someone in the interview process, especially that's going to be on your team in an on-site or a virtual interview, disrespects you, it's already over. They will do it again. This happened to me. I interviewed at a very large insurance company. The recruiter told me that they were changing the job description before I got there. So I was like confused. Gave me the new job description, said they were having trouble. I went into the interview with this lady. She was late. She told me that she was double booked for the meeting. She took Slack messages and answered them the entire interview. She didn't look at my resume and she wasn't even listening to the answers to the questions that I was making. It was horrible. I knew it was over from the very beginning. She was not interested in hiring anyone. All of these were very alpha authoritarian power plays, which in a situation of an interviewer and interviewee are very unnecessary. There's a problem there. It may be an authoritarian atmosphere. It sounded like the company was shoving someone at her that she didn't want. So it was not great. So if you get disrespected visibly, if it doesn't feel right, if you feel like you're being, basically crapped on, it's already over. So pay attention to that. Another good question to ask is, what advice would you give someone that's working here for the first 90 days? You can ask that of all the people on the panel and they will tell you stuff. And sometimes their answers will jive, which is amazing because you get a lot of good information. So now the offer. The offer kind of goes like this. Typically, you'll get a call. It'll be late at night. I don't know why, but recruiters tend to do this. I think one of the reasons why they're trying to shorten the time between the offer and the time you have to take it. Because they got a green light from the whole team. You've been compared to other candidates. They want to close that window, right? So they'll call you. You'll give you a thumbs up, and in the morning you'll maybe get a written one. This is when you negotiate. If you don't know what to do at this point, you need to ask someone because you get information. It's a really important decision. A lot of people negotiate on little things, big things, money, short-term, long-term considerations. Time zone difference is something right now that's important to note. When you're negotiating, it shows you're invested. They're not going to back out at this process. You don't have to negotiate about big things, but it's just something that makes it more of a fit for you. And they find negotiation to be something that lets them know that the person really wants this job. You need to know the role. You need to know the environment. You can look up what to say, Google it, websites, get lots of points of information. Point is, if you need second opinions, especially your family, they're going to be impacted by this. If you have a significant other, et cetera, you need to talk it out and you need to find, because the offer will be the company communicating to you basically what they want out of you. Are they looking for you long-term, short-term? Are they looking for you to prove yourself? All of this will kind of be in the tangible parts of the offer. Making the decision. Rubber duck debugging is something a pragmatic programmer written a long time ago. It's a software development thing. And the idea is when you set down, if you debug something by setting down a rubber duck and explaining to the rubber duck every aspect line by line. it's an exercise that you can do by yourself before, if you're embarrassed, you don't want to talk to somebody, and you can do this and say, okay, line by line, what is this and how is it? You formulate the story, and that's one of the things when you ask other people is you formulate the whole story of the whole thing and the whole process, and while you're explaining it, things will come to mind that help you to make the decision before you make it. You need to weigh all of the factors. It's not just about the money. It's, the company growth, what they do. For me, values-driven company, differentiator, nonstop. I wrote a book about integrity. I've worked in a lot of situations as a consultant on my own and also in other companies. And I didn't realize what I was looking for was a company that was values-driven. I've worked in companies that had values, but that was only about money. And in D&D terms, that kind of comes out to be lawful evil. So anyway, so, that was really important to me. May not be to you. There's a lot of factors involved. So recap. Let's recap before we do questions and wrap it up. Sure you're tired of hearing me talk. We talked about who I am, why I'm speaking to you today. We talked about the concepts of job hunting, the main ideas that you need to take out of this. I suggest you review those because they're important. It's a very stressful mess and a lot of interviewing, and it requires a bit of practice. We talked about your resume. We touched on your resume. You can spend a day, multiple days on that. A lot can be done about a resume. Talking with people in your field of expertise and having them review your job and your career history, especially people who have been in a hiring position, they will be able to present things very well. We do that all the time here at the Guild. We talked about the different moving parts. We went through that section because I wanted you to know the different moving parts and consider the perspectives, because it'll help you to know where you are in the process, and it'll help you to debug what happened when things go wrong, so you can learn from it. We talked about the application process, different strategies there. We talked about the interview process. That's important because it's a set thing really right now. In my experience, it's like clockwork. Oh, I got past the gatekeeper. They're talking to me still. I'm going to get a panel next. Boom. 6 hours interviews on your calendar. And right now we're recapping. And now, do we have any questions? All right. Okay.
First question that we've got right now is, how do you deal with employers who ask the new employees for social media account creds just after they get hired?
They ask for your social media account credentials?
Yep.
Wow. You tell them to take a hike. I personally, no. That's a privacy issue. I can't believe that happens. Have you heard of that, Tremere?
So I have heard of this quite a bit. There's companies that do it. It's not legal, but if you give it to them willingly, they can certainly pressure you into it.
That is a very good point. Companies, like I said, companies will typically do what you allow them to do. They will ask questions about things that sometimes legally they're not allowed to. But what are you going to say? Oh, you're not allowed to ask this question. It's not legal. You have to kind of sidestep it. But then again, if they're going to ask that kind of stuff, it's already over. I mean, unless you've got a social media account you set up 2 days ago and you've got nothing in it, then yeah, sure, give them your credentials. But just keep that in mind. That's when you're talking about PII and privacy concerns. Wow, man. Yeah. Okay. So no on that. Next question.
All right. So this one, where would you put info that you are a veteran or for vet preference and a disabled vet? So I'll let you answer that if you want, or you could pass it back to me.
I'll just say some words and I'll pass it to you. So as far as info about being a veteran or being a disabled veteran, It may help you in certain situations. Shamir is a vet. I'm not civilian all the way. But I'll tell you that some companies actively look for veterans. I hired a lot of veterans. I liked veterans. What was amazing to me is they came pre-built with discipline and a go-get-it attitude. I had great experience with veterans. So anyway, what do you got to say about that, Shamir?
So for me, I have a military experience section on my resume. It's the last thing on my resume, but I have a whole section dedicated to it. And any vet who's having issues with putting their military experience or how to fit that on the resume, come talk to us. Myself, Cochise, Trey, all of us are vets. We can help in a number of different ways, but any vet out there, you can make an entire resume off of your military experience. I promise you.
Even if you were in
So,
for 4 years.
Yep. Whether you're in for 4 years, whether you're a pogue, whether you're a real job, if you're an infantry guy, we can build a whole resume there. Just, if you need help, let us know. We can help.
That's a good point too. I can help a veteran translate their military experience to civilian value. I spoke with one member of the guild, and
Okay.
he was saying that he didn't know how to articulate that what he wanted was a job that had action and was mission oriented. So he got out of an accounting job because it wasn't action and it wasn't mission oriented. You just run numbers all day. And he wanted something that was I want to accomplish things. He was an accomplishment oriented guy. And through just common conversation, him talking about his military experience, learning all about that, we were able to figure that out. He didn't realize that the resume called that was highlighted, and he was like, oh my gosh, Next question.
All right. So I have a question from the group here. They asked me to specifically comment on the previous question about what's my feedback on the companies asking for account creds. And so I'm going to mirror exactly what Koby said. Screw that company, GTFO. A company, I have personally seen this. I've dealt with a number of my mentees coming to me asking, I got this question, what should I do? You should never give your social stuff to your boss, period. If the company wants you to do it, screw that, get a new job. Now, with that being said, anybody who is a friend of mine on social, if I get a job with your company, I immediately kick you from my friends list. I don't have my bosses on social. I don't have my employees on social. Sorry, Jake. Just don't do it.
Now, is it acceptable to ask for naked pictures of their spouse in exchange for your social information?
And no, nudes do not qualify in any way, shape, or form.
That's when it gets really weird.
All right. So another question. Any tips for working with recruiters or spotting fake recruiters just trying to data mine?
Yeah. So the recruiters that are good, and I know some. So if you're looking either locally or nationally, they will talk a lot about you and ask a lot of questions about you. They will take the time to work with you because they want to place you. You're not a number to them. That alone separates a lot of recruiters. Then they will tell you about different opportunities. They may not tell you who they're with, but they'll give you job descriptions and they'll say, hey, what do you like? And then they'll ask permission if they can apply for you. And then they tell you, please let us know where you apply so that we don't, overlap. Those recruiters are worth their weight in gold. There's a lot of that just and even with them, it's the same thing. I mean, be brief, be gone. You don't want to waste their time. If they ask questions, it's fine. But there's some recruiters, they're like in a boiler room and they're just talking to people and moving them on. Those are typically not the good ones. You have people that engage you once, get a bunch of information to go away. You planted a seed maybe, but don't engage them again. Next question.
Okay, so let me add some context there.
Go
So
for it.
with fake recruiters or people, you should never give out your information to someone who just calls you or contacts you, period.
That's
So
true, yeah.
with recruiters, just like anything else, do your research. Check them out online, check them out on LinkedIn, ask for references, make sure they're real first. And if you can't find information about them, if you don't see reputable history, if they can't give you references and whatever, don't give them your information. Just full stop. Especially as you get higher up in the cyber community. There's a lot of
Yes.
people that very specifically, China, target security researchers and security
Thank you.
principals,
Yeah.
and they are just trying to get you, and they will send you documents, and they will apply to jobs for you, and they will do all sorts of stuff. And they're
Yeah.
just trying to jack your machine. So, don't.
Thanks, Tremere. I do all of that. I do it instinctively. I won't even, if somebody calls me and they're a legit call, I won't even give them information over the phone or confirm anything, because I know that questions are power. So they'll ask, oh, well, you know, can I make sure that this is still so-and-so with the company so-and-so? I don't give anybody anything. I just don't do it. It's just who I am now. But yeah, for someone that doesn't know any better, don't give out information over the phone. Don't let these people data mine you. Try and figure out who they are first. Look them up. Yeah, I did all of these things, and I found some really good recruiters. And you can tell because there's movement out on LinkedIn. They're doing stuff. They, you know, you'll figure it out. You'll see that they're real or not. Next
Okay,
question.
So next question, how do you change the mindset of an interview that already has a negative connotation as you are trying to transition from outside of cyber into cyber?
Interesting. Negative connotation about what?
So a lot
That's
of
what
people think that someone coming into cyber
Oh,
is
like
at
they
an
don't know
immediate
anything?
disadvantage, and you don't have 12 years experience doing this, so why do you rate a cyber position, stuff like that?
Oh, I see. Yeah. So basically, show to them what you're doing, show them your community involvement, show them the things that you have done. You don't have to have actual job experience to be able to put forth an image that you're active in the community and you're very. We have a guild member that got a job that way. He'd been doing crazy, amazing stuff, impressing everyone in the guild for like a year. Didn't have a job offer because he was making a transition, and he was making some bank too before. So he really wanted to do this, and it just took him a while to get in there. So show them the things that you've done. Show them your people that really want a good candidate will look past those small things. And if they're negative and they can't drop it, that's fine. They're not buying what you're selling. Move on.
Going off of that, one of the key things Koby just said is show them what you've done. If you are not actively doing stuff and you don't have active things to show, then you're wrong. So, you know, if you need projects, if you need guidance, if you need a mentor, that's what we're here for. But if you're not willing to do and make your job search an active thing, you're going to be working from the back anyways.
And when he says you're wrong, he's not saying you're wrong tactically. He's saying you're just wrong overall.
Exactly.
You need to be doing stuff. Action speaks a lot louder than words. In employment, it is your utility that people are buying. You need to be able to accomplish something that they're willing to pay for.
So our next question, do you recommend cramming in as much info as possible into a resume or making it pretty in graphics and stuff?
Neither. Make it well formatted, make it clear, make it concise. Do not cram your resume full of useless stuff because they're probably not going to read it anyway. You want it to be clear, direct, well formatted, and concise. I had a resume that was like 6 pages when I started. I got it down to 2. You know, I felt weird about cutting out all that stuff, but it was just like when I wrote my book, my editor said, you know what, we're going to take this 2/3 and we're going to throw it out because a very few amount of pages that people will actually read is better than a whole lot of pages that nobody will read. And both of them are right. So what do you
So-
say about that, Tremere?
I'm going to add on there. So me and my wife, Wendy, we are both direct hiring managers, and we talk about resumes almost daily, if not every day, at least every few days. Your resume needs to stand out. If it doesn't, then people are going to pay less attention to it. If you make your resume less readable or less visually appealing by cramming so much data in there that it's not readable, no one's going to read it.
Yeah.
If you make your resume less readable with obnoxious pictures and GIFs and things like that, no one's going to read it. So there's kind of extremes on both sides, but a plain Jane black and white resume, you may get past the ATS, and then the hiring manager is going to be looking at your resume physically, and they're going to be looking at a dozen resumes after they do the cut down. And if 10 of those are all block formatting black and white, and one of them has color accents and is in a different format, guess which one's getting more attention? Humans are just designed to look at the novelty, and it applies to resumes just like anything else.
Yeah, so I had actually recruiters back up what he's saying, that yes, some flair on resumes is good, but personally, I don't recommend it to a lot of people because you don't know when they're going to go nuts with it. And I'm afraid that if I advise someone to jazz up their resume, that they're going to format it to a point where an ATS won't be able to read it. But yeah.
Yep.
So you can put some things in your resume that make it look better to a human being than versus like colors and stuff. I did a lot of deep dive reading on whether or not you should put a photograph on your resume. So cover letter, yeah, maybe, not resume. Messes up ATSs.
So what did you find out about putting the resume photo on?
That it was mainly something for a cover letter. If you needed to if you wanted to, you could put a photo on a cover letter because it's supposed to be personal anyway. And the ATS may not read the cover letter. It might go secondary. But if you put a photo on your actual resume, some ATS systems, it might gum them up. And then plus, you're taking away valuable space that you could use with important text. So, and in a lot of situations, I would put a cover letter, and some of them I wouldn't put one at all because I didn't think they were being read. Yep. I didn't get a lot of data on cover letters, by the way.
All right, our next question is, are you guys still seeing negative kickback against tattoos and other body mods like dyed hair and piercings? I'll let you do that first, and then I'll give my side.
Yes. So I have no tattoos. I'm very clean. Why? Because my parents have lots of tattoos. I'm being rebellious by this look. So about 20 years ago, there was this kind of thing like shabby chic in the workplace. It was nerd culture, right? The really skilled developers, et cetera, they could look bad, they could dress bad. And it was because they had very particular knowledge that was valuable, and they could get away with it in the environment. People needed them. Then what happened is there was a slow cultural shift where people that looked like they could talk to a C-level person and not scare them with a neck tattoo, those people started to excel and pull away from the other ones in their careers and their jobs, et cetera. And then everybody was dressing nice. It became ubiquitous. Now we're kind of at that point in cybersecurity again. Personally, I like to dress this way, but I don't judge people by the way they dress. I don't care what really people look like as long as they can do the job. But they might not put you in certain situations with certain clients because of the way you look, just because they might not think that will work well. And it's all about utility and making money. I mean, I hang with some of the, my brothers and sisters, the guild, that, some of them look crazy, as far as this, but they're great. They do good work, and that's what they do in their particular environment. I just like to look good and feel good and be sharp. So anyway, maybe I answered that question. I don't know. You try it, Tremere. What do you think?
The business that you're going into and whether you're in a client-facing role.
Yeah,
so
correct.
A lot of organizations, the executives are still old and they're conservative and they have a set mindset, and tattoos and colored hair are weird and deviant, and I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. And they may not say it out loud, they may not have a policy against it, but you will not get past the interview and you will not get hired. And if you come to work one day or show up in your Zoom meeting and your hair is purple and you have piercings, then they're going to start looking at your work for any excuse to get rid of you.
Or they're going to think, you better be a celebrity if you look like that, because if you're not, you're a liability.
Now, if you're not in a public-facing role and the company allows it, great. Personally, I couldn't care less, but my people have to go in front of C-level executives when they travel. And that means they can't have anything visible or crazy, because we don't know the opinions of who we're going up against. And there's no reason to upset someone on first meeting without them hearing a word out of your mouth. So
yeah, when I was in art school, I started to learn about early abstract impressionists, and at that point in time, the work that they were doing was nuts. Like, it was crazy. Like, nobody had ever seen anything like that before. It looked like insane people were doing it. And I remember I was like, wow, this is insane, because everything was very figurative, very accepted, and society loved it and bought it, and they would just went nuts. Picasso, early ones were almost horrific to the people at the time. They hadn't seen anything like that before. And then I saw a photograph of all of these abstract impressions together, and they look like the most Mad Men 50s square, forgettable people you would ever imagine. And something stuck with me about that really, it doesn't matter what you look like, you can do anything, right? And also, looking that way gave them a particular level of fluidity in society, because in a way it was just normal and forgettable. So it was one less thing for them to worry about. All their art and their fuel and their insanity came out through the things that they did in life, and not the way they looked. Their body was not necessarily a canvas.
All right, so I got another one for you.
Sure.
What made you interested in cybersecurity, especially when you're from the dial-up days?
Our token boomer.
So that was also supposed to be a phrase, how do you answer the question? That might have been a mistake on my part.
My driver is that I love to know how everything works. I just got to know how it works. And I don't feel like if I don't know how something works and why it works, that I really understand it. And there's one thing in software development that kind of annoyed the crap out of me, is this pressure to ship, right? And that drove down quality in software development, also drove down security. And I always felt like I was on like this, doing a high wire act, right? Because I'm putting out code and I don't know how everything works, because I haven't reviewed it all. I'm just getting things done. And I know that there's a lot of developers in that. They just get things done. They just do it. I just do it. Well, what is this function? What was it? Oh, I don't know. It works though. So that's my driver. I want to know how things work. And I think cybersecurity is the utmost mastery of that. Hear a networking talk at the guild. It'll blow your mind of like how these computers work. You know, one of the guild members pulled apart and built laptops. Who does that? You know, I thought I was cool building all these machines ground up. Now it's super easy. Everything just works when you put it together. Anyway, next question.
So we have a question here. How can I reach out to you for help with resume and interviewing stuff?
If you're a guild member, just reach out to me on Discord. Direct message me. If you're not a guild member, probably reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's a social network I participate on.
So
Next
for me, Neon Temple, you can find me here. I'm one of the guys that help out. Don't message me on LinkedIn.
You're one of the owners.
So I have another question here. Is it ever appropriate to cease the interview and walk out? I'll let you go first, Koby.
So I went through I told you I went through some horrible interviews. I'm like a student of humanity. I just want to see what people will do. So I'll just ride it out to the end. You know, like, you know, some of the bad interviews I had, I'd take the whole time of the interview and just see what these people are going to do, because they're just, I don't know. And I think my amusement made them uncomfortable because they're used to, you know, well, I'm a big dog and I'm going to pull this power play and you're going to respect me. And I was just like amazed with the things that they would do, because I was like, this is weird. This is totally weird. It would take me a couple of days to kind of debug what had happened. You know, I was like, what was that about? But yeah, I ride it through the end. Even if they're disrespecting me, or I've been in some brutal situations. Let me put it this way. One of the first places I worked at was extremely hostile, like illegal hostile now. Like the boss is cussing at you using 4-letter words and telling you you were a POS. And I'm not lying. I almost got in a fist fight with my boss one day early on. And I'm forever grateful for that, because it showed me, you know, I can compartmentalize and separate things out. So when it comes to somebody disrespecting me with words, doesn't bother me. Go for it, Tremere.
Okay. Yes, there is perfectly acceptable reasons to walk out of an interview. So I've been in a lot of interviews. If someone is making you feel unsafe, if you are dealing with obvious illegal opportunities, if you feel like you're being bugged and this has to be an interview via the FBI or something, I've been there. Leave.
Wow. Okay.
There are all sorts of reasons that you absolutely perfectly valid can leave an interview.
Yeah,
Be
if they bring out a knife and
respectful
start sharpening their fingernails
and
with it,
tell
you can
them
leave.
you are uncomfortable and you do not feel that this is going to be a good fit and that you are going to leave. If you're online, again, end the interview cleanly and say, I'm sorry, this is not going to be a fit. I'm not comfortable. I'm no longer interested in continuing this, and get the hell out.
Yeah. So, yeah, I forget that there's that kind of behavior, and people might not be, yeah. If someone pulls out like a knife and starts cleaning their fingernails in front of you, you can leave the interview. You can say, yeah, this is probably not going to be a fit for me. I really appreciate your time. Be very polite. You know, it's like when you're talking to a crazy soon-to-be ex-partner and you're getting ready to change all the locks. Be super nice about everything until you get the locks changed, until they're out the door.
All right, we have another one. I think we have one or two more. Is there really a blacklist shared among organizations or employers who tell each other not to hire?
I don't know if they share a blacklist. I will tell you that they talk, and they will talk about particular candidates. I have a family member that works in a particular industry, and that's how I know so much about this. And I gave this person the advice that I would give as an employer. Yeah, take the interview, don't ghost them, treat them nice, give them lots of information. Didn't do it, 0 callbacks. I know in that industry, the recruiters there, they just basically said he was a bad candidate. And the funny thing is that industry was small enough that I think probably all the employers thought so too, which was very unfortunate.
So I can add that, yes, absolutely, that we talk, and a lot of senior folks in the industry, a lot of senior folks in the local areas talk, hang out often, and we absolutely share information.
Yeah.
A lot of ATSs, the applicant tracking systems, actually have the ability to blacklist people or to leave notes or to enter names that will not make it past the rule list or the certain checkpoint barriers and things like that. And there is a whole institution, the Tampa SHRM communities share information. And if someone has to add you to their blacklist, they will tell a lot of the other HR executives at the next SHRM meeting that, I saw this person and it was absolutely horrible and we had to block them and da-da-da-da. And you could very well end up on a block list for half the people, half the organizations in Tampa really quick. So
yeah,
don't be stupid.
And that's funny. Is there an actual physical blacklist? It makes sense because some candidates may just be trouble completely, and they might actually let people know that. I don't know.
Now, I have a question here. ML pinged me directly and said, not sure if Koby mentioned anything, but we might have a bunch of women on YouTube. Maybe share some advice specifically for women, as sometimes it adds a layer to more difficulties. I'm not certain exactly what you're interested in us sharing specifically for women. So you may notice that both of us here are not women, but I'll pass it to you, Koby, first.
Sure. So women in hiring and women in employment. My wife is a very strong woman. She is extremely good at what she does. And she's also very, very concise and blunt about the truth. She's extremely efficient. I love her. She shared with me that, yes, there is complete bias against women in certain situations. And she categorized them and the difficulties that women have and the stuff that they have to deal with. And I was quite surprised because I didn't know. Wasn't like anything that seemed to affect her. I mean, you're talking about a beautiful blonde woman that worked with a boiler room of salesmen in the past, and they feared and respected her, which was probably a mixture of the two. And her advice was, you just have to deal with it, because some people you won't change. Now, as far as women in hiring, I've worked with lots of women. As a matter of fact, the company I'm working at now is one of the most, I realized the other day, so this is the most diverse company I've probably ever seen or been in. I love it. From my point of view, especially in tech, the more disparate points of reference you have, the more creative your solutions. So I enjoy that. As far as women working around or for me, it wasn't really on my radar that they were a woman, to be honest. I just, they worked and they did good, or they didn't, whether or not they were a woman. Even actually, when I was working for other people as an executive, I had to let people go. I didn't think about those things. I know that there was bias there, but I guess in a way I was more favorable towards women because I felt like they had more social skills. Because if they were excellent at what they did, they also had additionally the social skills in the environment to perhaps overcome some of the biases that were already there. So I felt like they were more dependable. I don't know. Sounds like I'm very in favor. I was in favor of women coders and women in tech, period. They can just do amazing creative things. So I guess there was some bias, but it would be for. And as far as advice, yeah, it will be out there, but you can't let other people
judge and create your worth and your value. You just have to make sure that you make that happen yourself.
So myself, one of the things I'm going to add here, with a lot of the women that I've worked with and mentored in the past, most of the women that I've worked with are significantly more hesitant on their resume, and they're significantly more hesitant to apply in a lot of places. So my advice overall is you can do it. You can do more than you think you can. And yes, you should apply.
That's a good
If you
point.
don't know how or you don't know why you can make that, ask somebody. I'm not going to tell you to ask a guy. Screw that. But ask somebody else, because a lot of your girlfriends, a lot of your guy friends, whatever, will show you and give you the confidence that you may not have intrinsically in yourself. Because unfortunately, a lot of women deal with imposter syndrome just because they've been so discriminated against in the workplace. So do it, make it happen. So I'll kind of leave it there.
I just want to add on top of that. I've also, I've found that women sometimes in the workplace are a lot more hesitant to assert their worth. When it comes down to negotiating, et cetera, I would reference back to it being about the fit. Because if you could really hone in on that concept that really, your employment and employee relationship is about how well that fit works, you can remove all of the other stuff from it. All of the biases. And if you really believe that, you can use that as a way to piggyback into asserting your worth. And you can do it in such a way that you're not taking it personal that someone is unconsciously or even consciously biased against you for any reason. Biases do exist. I did work with a recruiter, and she was a woman, and we were in interviews with people, and this one woman disclosed things that were not material to her employment, but would have triggered an unconscious bias. And we looked at each other and we didn't write it down, and we just said, okay, let's move on to the next thing. we buried it. Because the applicant should not have said those things, but they weren't material to her worth or the job that she could do. She was just being super nervous and disclosed too much. So, next.
So that's all the questions that we have here. So I'll give you any last words, anything that you want to say or get out there before we wrap things up.
No, I think we're good. I just wanted to make sure we were on time. So I know I didn't pull in some of the guild members to speak, but we're trying to stay on time, and it looks like we are. So thanks for your time, everybody. I hope somebody got something from this. If they did, let me know, please, in Discord or however you find me. I will reference the free newsletter again. If you're not wanting to join our group, but you want to find out some good information, we do trade in a lot of really good information. Of course, a lot of it is not public because we don't want to weaponize the public, but you're talking to people that are at the top of their craft inside of our guild, and we'd be happy to share it and spread the support that we have to the people trying to get in the industry or to excel in the industry. So anyway, thanks everybody.
All right. So last thing I'm going to leave everybody with here. I tell this to all of my employees. No one is going to work on your career other than you. You have to be working, whether you have a job, whether you don't have a job. You need to be working on yourself. Even if you love your job right now, you don't know if it's going to be there forever. Work on yourself, work on your job, keep your resume updating. If you're looking for help, we've got a lot of people here, Koby, myself, a lot of the others here, help with a lot of resumes. We do a lot of coaching and mentoring. Myself and Koby have just recently helped each other both with a bunch of job and interview stuff. Myself and several other executive levels at the temple, again, helping each other out. That's what we're here for. We're here to help each other, to expand our network, and to get over the imposter syndrome that a lot of us deal with in this industry. That's the whole point of the Neon Temple. So come on down, make some acquaintances, join the merry crew of marauders here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and close things down for tonight. Till next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Koby. Great job. Fantastic.
That was some good shit.
Yeah, I think
We actually had 24 at one point.
So how do you rationalize being a person as you are and switching to the role model?
Yeah. I had some kick-ass engagement for a 2.5 hour talk.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good.
So do the intel
Yeah, that's I think a good way to start more newsletter subscription. Yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna post some shot. Thanks again. Great job. All right, and I will. I didn't grab your address at all. I just said audio not good.
weird.
Well,
So when we break the code in quarantine, there, okay?